Hi, and welcome to the Brohoyo podcast, the podcast about gotcha in general and Hoyoverse games in specific. I'm your host, Stephen, and this is my co-host, David.
Hey everyone.
And this week, we're going to discuss the newest controversy in Kai Star Rail, Castorice and global passives. But before we do get into that, we know it's been a bit since we've covered any gotcha news and talked about gotcha in general. So, Dave, why don't you kick it off?
Yeah, so before we dive into our big discussion this week, we just kind of wanted to say, take some time to catch up and say kind of what we've been doing for the past couple weeks, what's the state of some of our accounts and games that we're playing, and maybe what did we pull for while we were going to share a couple stories. But actually, our one star is more recently during our break, we experienced April Fools, and a lot of gotchas take some good spirited fun for the day there and do various silly or fun things. Steve, were there any gotcha games that you had a chance to participate in any April Fool's events?
Unfortunately, no. April Fool's is a rather busy day for me, in general for work and so forth. So, not a lot going on, gotcha wise for me on that one.
Well, for me, I know with April Fools, had some fun with Nikkei. They always do a pretty solid April Fools event. This year, kind of continuing almost like a part two of last year in terms of the actual in the game event that they did, where last year was kind of following Shifty around, and then we got Shifty, Mecha Shifty, essentially. This year, a little bit of an event there. And then outside of the game, they actually created and released a movie trailer for a Nikkei movie that was coming soon. And when I first saw it, I'll be honest, I first saw it in the morning, the trailer, and I didn't realize what day it was. I was like, okay, a popular gotcha game getting an anime/movie. Okay, that makes sense to me. And then I realized, oh, wait, trust nobody, it's April 1st. That was that was Nikkei. Brown Dust 2, they did the developers actually did a live stream for Brown Dust 2. And for those that are unfamiliar with Brown Dust 2 and the developers, they're very aware of what type of game they make and what kind of audience they have. And they kind of lean into that. So all this panel of men, that are on the development team, all dressed up as characters from the game. Again, if you know anything about the game, you'll know there are not a lot of male characters, and none of them were male characters. They were all dressing up as some of the popular female characters from their game. But they ended up this live stream. They did a 17-hour live stream where they basically they created a little mini game in that they'd released, which was, I believe, kind of like a vampire survivor type game, and they intended to beat that game, and depending on how many tries it took would correspond to how many pulls they gave out. I think they said if we beat it on the first try, we'll give out 50 pulls, and then for each time we die, we'll subtract one pull. And after 17 hours, they didn't actually end up beating it, but they still, I think, gave out 20 pulls or whatever have you. But very based devs, very much humorous and leaning into what they know they've created in that IP. Mm-hmm. But those were the two that I actively participated in. Another one that I saw, not a game that I play anymore, but one that I saw was Blue Archive. They actually created a visual novel for one of their popular common enemy mobs. And so I thought that was pretty clever, just a visual novel from the enemy's perspective. But that's just a few of the gotcha April Fool's events that we saw. I know Limbus Company did some things. I think some fan bases for the Arc Knights IP had some fun. I think I saw some user teased Arc Knights Enfeld release as if it was in 2 weeks, when we all know that it's going to be coming later this year. There were some other events and such, but that's April Fool's, I think, in a nutshell. So a lot of good fun to be had there. Now, we obviously have had, I think, about 2 or 3 weeks where we were off here. Hopefully you guys enjoyed our off-banner discussions. But with those 2-3 weeks passing, obviously a lot of banners probably rotated in a few of the different gotchas that we play. So, Steve, did you, while maybe not partaking in April Fools, were there any games that you decided to pull for while we were away? Any characters that you wanted to talk about? Maybe
Yeah.
outside of Hoyoverse, because I know we have characters to talk about new releases. But did you do any polls while we were gone?
Yeah, I did a couple. So I guess I'll start within Hoyoverse and then kind of jump out of them. So I did pull for Silver Soldier Ambi, and was able to get her, and have been enjoying building up her as a character. Also, and I know that she's going to be discussed later, but I pulled for Trigger and was able to get her as well in ZZZ.
And
Then
to clarify,
yeah.
this is for Zenless Zone Zero for those unfamiliar with acronyms in these characters, but Zenless Zone Zero. Go ahead.
For Zenless Zone Zero, those are the two that I got. I managed to save up enough to go back to back with them. Then for I think that really basically covers all the Hoyoverse stuff. Outside of Hoyoverse, basically picked up each new character as they came out in Brown Dust 2, and then Clucky. In Girls Frontline 2, I managed to V1 or V2. It's whenever you get the second copy. I got 2 copies of her.
Okay.
V Tutor. I got very, very lucky. I basically pulled, and then I went, you know what? I've been saving up for her to come out for a while, so I'll throw the rest of my pulls in. And immediately on the next tin pull after she came home, I got her again. So it was a back to back, and I went, okay, cool. Got her, and now I'm working on getting her built up because I really didn't pre-farm for her at all. I think that's the majority. I haven't. Those have been the big gotchas that I've been playing. I've really streamlined down because I've been rather busy for the past month or two. So I only have 2 or 3 games that I'm actually actively playing at any given time. So yeah, that's about it for me. What about you?
Yeah, so for me, let's see, a similar format to you. I'll start in the Hoyoverse realm. So with Zenless Zone Zero, I pulled for Bernice on the previous patch cycle because she synergizes really well with Evelyn. I'm trying to make, one cohesive team that synergizes. And so pulling for Bernice, I was able to do that eventually. I did lose the 50-50 for her, and I got the standard banner cat girl. I think Neko Mata, is her name, or Nico or something like that. But then I was able to grind out a lot of the events and really start diving into their equivalent of the Spiral Abyss and get some more premium currency. And then got Bernice, so built her up, and now I'm currently on the stage of artifact grinding in Zenless Zone Zero for them. So that's where I'm at there, and then of course working through the story. But as far as pulls go, Honkai Star Rail, I have not pulled for anything. I've been saving up because of what we have around the corner with various characters. And then for Genshin, I pulled for Cloud Retainer. I pulled for Jinyun, her rerun banner that's going on, because I mentioned, I think in an episode not too long ago, that I said if they ever rerun her, I'll pull for her, because I really liked the character aesthetic. I liked the swan dive that she does type stuff, and I haven't really built too many animo based teams. And so when I found out they were rerunning her, it kind of got me to load back into the game. So thanks to the returning gamer bonus, or the returning player bonus, I was able to accrue enough to get her. And she did come home, I think she came home a little early. It wasn't much early, but I'm not going to complain if she comes home at 70, right before self-pity. So, and a pull saved is a pull earned, right?
Yeah.
And then outside of Hoyoverse, Brown Dust 2, that game just gives pulls away essentially. So any new character that comes out will pull for them. Nikke, I have been saving up since the Valentine's Day event. I went all in on the masked maid character, and then I also made sure to get the anchor maid character as well, because those two had some good support synergies, which Nikke tends to do. They'll release, a theme, whether it be maids this time around, or last year it was schoolgirls. and they'll release two characters back to back that have very good synergies with each other. So that was the case during the Valentine's event, but I haven't pulled anything since then. So I'm just kind of saving up because the half anniversary event is right around the corner, and then summer right after that. So I'm saving up in Nikkei based off of historically what they've done. Similar to you though, Girls Frontline 2, I did go in on the Clucky banner. So we'll talk a little bit more about her later on. But in terms of her, I've been planning and saving up for her because of how relevant she is, and also I think she looks really cool in her ultimate with the motorcycle, also awesome. And so I pulled for her initially and got her, won the 50-50, and then I was debating, okay, why I'm free to play. I don't think I can get her V6 unless I get extremely lucky. But I thought I could get her to V3 even with average luck. And so what I ended up doing last week is I just started polling. I said, I'm going to go until I lose a 50-50 or until I get a V3 Kluke. And I did get a V3 Kluke. So she's on the account. Awesome. Like I said, we'll do a more in-depth breakdown of her later on in the show when we get to our other news and notes. But that is going to be what I've been polling for and what I've been doing here in the past couple weeks. So now leaving the land of fun and sunshine and rainbows and butterflies to discuss Castorice and her release in Honkai Star Rail for next week.
Tomorrow.
I guess in a couple days, I guess, when this goes live, right? So obviously a lot of controversy surrounding her. So first, I guess for those that are unfamiliar.
Well, really quick, I would also like to note that this is recorded before she goes live. So there is an off chance that when this goes live and, when Castorice goes live, they've made a change. It's very unlikely. Very unlikely. But I want to put it out there that to be 100% fair, we're working off of pre-release information. That's all.
I mean, based off of the content creators server and the stuff that we're seeing, this is all but going live.
I 100% agree with you. I'm just the caveat is there in case that change happens. This comes out and we look like idiots.
But for those that are unfamiliar, so it was rumored weeks ago, right, because of leaks and such, that Castorice was going to have a passive global ability. And what we mean by that global passive is that she does not have to be in your party. She does not have to be built. She just has to be on the account in any capacity. So as long as you pulled for and obtained her, you would have this perk, as it were. And perk in and of itself was that if during a round of combat, a character or multiple characters die, they are revived essentially in like a cocoon type thing to take their turns as normal with 1 HP. And so they would get an action, and if they're not healed or if they're knocked out before their next turn, then they would die. But if they're healed before their next turn, then they're active, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when these leaks were first rumored to be coming out and what it was, there was a lot of response in the community. And now, as we've seen through various beta testing and the content creator server and various things coming out, this is how it is going to go to live. Like Steve said, there's technically a small chance, however infinitesimal it may be, that they change it. But for all intents and purposes, this is how she's going to ship. And so I wanted Steve to get your feedback because we haven't really talked about it amongst ourselves. We've actually been saving it kind of to talk live and get each other's thoughts. But I wanted to get your initial reaction when you saw this, and now that we see that it's going live, what's your takeaway? How you feeling about it?
So when I first heard about it, first saw it and so forth, my initial reaction was this isn't going to make it to live. I was fairly certain that they were going to downplay it, they were going to change it, they were going to remove it in some way, shape, and form to make it into, not, to be blunt, not be as powerful, even though I don't necessarily feel that this ability is super powerful in and of itself, but to try and appease and allay concerns that people would have from this. That they change it into something more fluffy, like it only works in Amphorius in the overworld. That this is an ability that you only get. It's there for fluff. It's there for fun. It's not going to work in any high end content. It is limited solely to like the Amphorius overworld, since it's not budgeted in for her. Basically, they remove that as part of the power budget. They just throw it in as a neat little, she's a anniversary character. We're going to give her this in the same way that Acheron has her one hit kill thing. It'd be something similar to that, where it's like, okay, this is a neat, fun enough little fluffy bit that has been added to her kit that doesn't really affect anything that quote unquote important to the meta or to the game. The fact that they haven't changed it and it has made it to live has me concerned, and we'll talk about other stuff later as to I have conspiracy theories, but now that it's coming out,
too early for the tinfoil hats. Too early for the tinfoil hats.
Yeah,
we'll get to that in a bit.
Yeah, we'll get there. But at least as far as the passive itself and everything, I feel like it's as I said, it's not really that powerful of an ability, but it sets a precedent that I don't like. And it also puts me in an uncomfortable situation where I am now sitting here going, Castorice was a character I really wanted to pull for with or without this passive. But now that she has it, I'm arguing myself over basically, do I not pull this character in order to try and make a statement, even though I know for a fact that she's probably going to blow the numbers through the roof as far as like pulls and so on. So like, she's going to be a character everyone's going to want to get. She's going to do well. Where do I want to stand in my own moral, what have you, as to, do I pull or do I not? So that's what I'm wrestling with more so than anything else is, how much of a statement do I want to make, and how firmly do I and how strongly do I feel about this? But what about you?
Yeah, so a lot to react to in just in general, and then with kind of what you're saying. So the first thing that I just want to say, and I agree with you in this sentiment of differentiating between the power of the ability itself versus the precedent that is being set. I think everybody would agree that the power of the ability itself is okay. You could take it or leave it. Like, okay, it's an extra safety net, essentially, if you mess up on a round or something and don't heal, or you get unlucky and an enemy decides to attack your lowest health person. It's an extra safety net. Like, it's not game breaking. It basically saves you from having to restart an MOC run, so to that effect, okay. But shifting to the bigger picture and the precedent that it sets, I think that it's a problem to have a character that has a passive global ult, because while right now in this instance for Castorice, it's okay, ho-hum, it's a safety net thing. What happens when it becomes something that gives you extra energy recharge, or gives you extra crit rate or crit damage or something to that effect? That's where I think the problem is going to become is how do they utilize this mechanic in the future with other characters? The other reason I don't love it is, while for me, when we were first introduced to Castorice in the story and you're following her, and then if you get too close, right, screen blacks out and the game scolds you for doing it, right? Mm-hmm. Like, she seemed like a really awesome, badass character in terms of just like, okay, she's just the girl that, she's rogue, basically. She just kills anything that touches her or gets close to her when she wants, except for when she wants, not uncontrollable. So better than rogue. Sorry, X-Men fan. And then throughout the story, pretty cool character. And then for me, like, seeing more about it, like, oh, her memo sprite is this giant dragon that just, essentially breathes fire and deletes things, was a really cool concept to me. So I was excited for the character in general. Now, while you are having the moral quandary of what kind of statement you want to make, I don't necessarily share that sentiment, because I agree with you. I think a lot of people are going to pull for, because awesome looking character, because global passive, because we don't have very many remembrance units, and this is one of the first 3 or 4. I'm not counting Trailblazer remembrance, while functional and good.
She's the second, technically.
I'm
Like
not,
second
not
5-star.
I'm not counting that one, right?
Yeah, second
So
5-star.
So I think she'll be popular for all of those reasons. So I don't think a few people not pulling for is going to make an inkling of a difference in Oyo versus Mind. I think she'll be a good character. I think she's not going to be like a must pull, again, because the global passive ultimately isn't game breaking. But again, I am more concerned about the precedent down the road because, to your point, in a sense, we kind of already have global passes introduced to us in Genshin. It was just, oh, we get more, materials on our expedition, or the expeditions take 4 less hours than they normally would,
Yeah.
right? It's not.
Yeah, sorry, to clarify, we did talk a little bit ahead of time, and that was a point I had brought up, was the overworld traces that you get for them. Sorry, because that wasn't something actually mentioned in the grant. That was a previous statement, but continue.
But so we've kind of already been exposed to that in the past a little bit. But again, those are, to your point, those are for fun things that don't affect the account, that don't affect a Spiral Abyss run. It's literally just kind of, it saves some time. So in this instance, in Star Rail, this particular one is more of, I can look at it and I can sell it as it just saves me time, because if somebody goes down, they pop back up. And again, that saves me having to reset this particular run at MOC or Pure Fiction or whatever have you. And so I think moving forward with these, they have to be careful with these global ults, since this is what they're going to do apparently moving forward. And as long as it's something that's not giving you a power spike in the account, and it's more of a time saving thing, while I'm still not okay with the idea of global passives, it's more palatable. Because then the other thing that this does is now you're having to budget as a free-to-play character, or a free-to-play player, excuse me, for characters that you wouldn't normally pull for because they don't fit any type of team that you have or any type of team that you're building, because the global passive may give you a benefit that, again, if they're not careful with it and they do make it combat related stuff, then you just have to pull this character to get that perk. Otherwise, you're going to be running behind these spongier enemies, which is kind of another thing that Star Rail's getting dragged about, is HP sponging on, or HP scaling rather, on these sponges of bosses. But those are kind of my thoughts and piggybacking on yours. I'm going to throw back to you so you can respond, because I know I've been dragging. Talking for a while.
You're good. I'm going to give a hot take, and this is what I'm known is probably potentially going to upset people. But
should we tell folks, prepare the tinfoil hats? Are we there yet? Or
no, this isn't Tigna. This isn't that. This is just hot take. Because we had talked previously, and you brought up the Gin crafting and overworld abilities. And I would argue actually that those overworld abilities are more powerful than what Castorice has. Because in some cases, the ability, for example, I want to say it's Albedo, or there's a number of them, that they will give you a 10% chance to give you a duplicate of whatever you're creating, or a 25% chance to give multiple copy, or give you another copy of something that you used in order to craft a higher level item. And that's resin in the bank. That
it's saving time. Yeah.
But there are people who will spend not primos. It's primos and Genshin, who spend primos in order to do more runs of domains. Like, those are in a very roundabout way. And again, this is hot take.
And people that spend primo gems for resin are either whales or very silly free-to-play players.
Well, yeah, but again, that's something that's being given to, even if you're a free-to-play player, you're now effectively getting a free run of a domain, or a free so forth. So again, that's why I said it's a hot take, that in some ways those abilities are actually more powerful than what Castorice does, because for the majority of us, I would say, the times in which her ability is actually going to radically change a given run of MOC, or radically change any given fight, is going to be very minor.
Well, yeah. Well, what you're saying isn't wrong. Like, yeah, I would agree that the Genshin passives, and you're talking about crafting passives, not necessarily the expedition passives. No, yeah, I would agree that, yeah, those are stronger than Castorice's, yes, but they all fall under the same umbrella of ultimately saving you time. Because now that's 30 seconds to a minute that you're not having to run that domain, or however many minutes it is, 8 minutes, where you have to wait for one resin to regenerate. So it's not changing, damage numbers. It's just saving you time. And that's how I look at Castorice's specifically. Again,
Yeah.
if it ever were to shift to a global ult or a global passive that changes the numbers in combat, that would be different. Like, oh, it's gonna give you 5% more crit damage, or it's gonna give you +5 speed, or whatever have you. That is something I think that as much as people don't are reacting to this now, if something like that were to happen, I think there would be a bigger pushback on it.
Yeah,
Because you're actively messing with people's accounts.
and I think that's
Combat sense.
Yeah, that's I think the root of the issue. It's not what we're getting now. It's what we're concerned we're going to get a year from now when the next anniversary comes out. Because I don't think that this is going to be something that's going to show up on anything other than anniversary characters, at least for a while.
That's right. We do have the Star Rail anniversary coming up. I don't know how much we want to talk about that, because
I'm going to be, that's part of my tinfoil hat.
They did showcase what they're giving out and what they're doing for that. And obviously we do have some new characters coming down the pipeline. But as far as kind of what we know and what I'll say here as far as talking about, and then I'll get my tinfoil hat out and hear what you have to say. The big thing for me that I was excited about, that I saw from the live stream, was the free Ruan Mei or Locha. Choose between either of those 5-star characters. And as somebody, I don't have Locha. I do have Ruan Mei, but her E1 is really good for break teams. I think it's like ignore 20% of defenses on broken units or something like that. So I'm kind of torn. New character or E1 on a character that's in a few of my teams. I'm excited about that. But what do you have? He says, as he gets out a tinfoil hat.
So my thought is that the announcements that have been coming out for Honkai Star Rail have been, I don't want to say overly generous, but again, we're getting we're getting one of 2 free 5-star characters. I believe they've also mentioned that there's going to be another free 5-star character coming at some point in the future. Not in this patch, but further down the line.
Yeah, Dr. Ratio-esque scenario.
Yeah,
yes.
A Dr. Ratio-esque scenario where there's going to be another one that's going to be just given to all accounts. The fact that they've come back and said, okay, look, we're going to go back and buff older characters. I believe the characters that they announced that they were going to be buffed were Jinglu, Silver Wolf. There were 2 more. There was 4 characters. I thought Kafka was one of them, but I might be wrong.
I would say I thought so. I thought so too, because a lot of the characters they named, I was like, yes, these are all characters on my account. Yes.
Yeah, I think it was those.
I love the Jinglu buff. I think Kafka. I love the idea of that. And was it maybe Black Swan, or was that?
No, I think it was Locha. Locha. I think that was the 4th. I full disclosure, I'm not Googling it or whatever, so I don't remember what the 4th is. But I believe it was Locha, because they wanted to bring him back.
Right? But anyway, back to the conspiracy.
Yeah. So they're doing that. They're giving away free characters. We've got the anniversary coming, which is also going to come with its own rewards on top of all of this, just from events and so on and so forth. And I guess to clarify, the reason why I'm also bringing up the anniversary is that anniversary characters have, at least in Honkai Star Rail, the precedent set by Asheron is that they are a big tentpole character. That they are going to be something that is big and exciting and kind of defining of the next few months, for good or for ill. Asheron was that. She was very powerful. She had her unique talent, which let her just end fights. Like, you don't even have to fight them. If she uses them on anything that's not elite or higher, you just win the fight, collect the rewards, and move on. That's sort of the precedent that has been set for this. And I feel like Brohoyo is really trying to gas Honkai Star Rail. Not gaslight, but they're trying to pump in a lot of fuel into the game. I don't know if they're seeing numbers drop. I don't know if they are trying to get ahead of the Castorice thing, where, the cynic in me is that they know that it's going to be an unpopular decision, So they're trying to throw up as much good news around it that they just kind of yeah, who cares about the fact that Castorice is setting this precedent? We're giving you this and we're giving you that and da da da. And it's like, yeah, but I feel like just removing that passive would have been the easier fix. Like that passive doesn't. The fact that it's global, I will say this, that I do think that that Castorice needs the safety net because of the way that the character plays. She drains health from the rest of her team, and not a small amount. She will reduce your team down to 1 HP quite easily. And, if you don't have a healer that's up for the task, it's going to be rough. So giving her that safety net is important, but it didn't have to be global. It could have been something that she was just on the team on, or it could have been tied to her technique, or you could have done any number of things to still have made it work, but not have been quite as excessive as it is. So I don't know. I'm really curious if we're in a situation where we're the frog in the pot. They're slowly increasing the heat, and they're doing distraction stuff elsewhere to try and be like, no, don't notice. But at the same time, they're also to give them the benefit of the doubt. I to a certain degree trust Hoyo, not a lot, but I do trust them. That they're trying to buff up older characters, so it does seem like they're trying to get ahead of some of their own self-inflicted problems. But I don't know. It all strikes me as a little bit. It sounds weird to say that they're being overly generous, but there's a part of me that's going, "Why are you so generous right now? Like what are you trying to fix? What's the problem that this is all trying to resolve?" Because you don't normally you're a gotcha company. You're not normally this, giving. So what's the trick? Where's the razor blade in the apple?
Interesting take. I think I can partially put on the hat with you a little bit in that regards. With this being the start of a new month, I haven't looked at the Sensor Tower numbers to look at revenue for March to see how Star Rail did or how Genshin's doing or ZZZ or anything like that. So I'd be interested to go back and look if there's any credibility to your argument that's backed up by those numbers. I think anniversaries are typically, obviously huge events for any gacha, not necessarily just Hoyoverse games, but any gacha. And yeah, typically characters that come out for the anniversary are meant to be strong. Because they're generally popular characters. Like Nikkei's done this with their anniversary events. Even Genshin and Star Rail, and I guess ZZ when they eventually have theirs. I'd be interested to see what their first one looks like and if they follow this trend. But yeah, they're throwing a lot of things at us, and yeah, I don't know if it's all kind of that, like you said, that subterfuge to ignore and for caster stuff. Or another thing to consider, I know we haven't really talked about it because I don't know, it's another big thing that's going on. I'd be remiss if I at least didn't mention it in this context. So they're trying to distract us maybe from also a lot of the controversy surrounding the voice actor stuff. Because obviously playing Star Rail, you've been playing Genshin, and you've been doing some of the story missions, you'll notice some characters' voices, they're mute, they're non-existent. Yeah. And while we're not going to be here to go into the weeds and the thick of that, we are aware that is going on and probably is a factor in a few things. And I wouldn't normally bring it up, but I think it could actually be a factor in this as well, as they're trying to earn some good publicity from the player base and kind of get back in our good graces, because there are some things going on with unions versus non-unions and AI stuff, protections and things. Again, this isn't the place where we're going to get deep into the weeds of it. There's plenty of sources out there you can go look in and read into it yourself, and there is a lot to read on it because it is very it's very complex. There's a lot of arguments and points from both sides, and I'll just kind of leave that there.
Yeah, and I did really quickly pull up the Sensor Tower numbers for it. So for March, this is specifically for March 2025, Honkai Star Rail remained in 4th place. However, their revenue dropped, or at least their sales, I shouldn't say revenue, their sales numbers dropped from around 46 million in February to a little bit less than 30 million in March. on the opposite side of that, Genshin actually hopped, skipped, and jumped over Honkai to be in third place and went from 27 million in February to roughly 39 million in March. And then
is this like all numbers combined, or is this one specific?
These are combined. These are their combined numbers. Now, to be fair, both of them are being dwarfed by Pokemon TCG Pocket, who is at 91 million in February and 81 million in March. So, but still, there does seem to be at least a short-term dip. I would have to see an overall chart to get the full numbers, but it looks like the numbers are potentially hovering around, let's say, 35, 40 million on a month to month. And I don't know where it's trending direction wise, but
it's interesting. Pokemon TCGs up there, because the Pokemon card craze is real. The nostalgia's there. That's free way to pull cards essentially, and still get that nostalgia rather than going out and buying packs. So there's a part of me that's kind of wanting to go out and buy packs. Who knows? Maybe we should post up some shorts of pack openings. I don't know if that would be something people would be interested in, but so the numbers are down a little bit compared to what they've done in previous months. But in terms of overall rankings, you said they're still third, fourth, sixth, something like that.
Yeah, they're easily top 5. I think they're 4th now. Just for, I guess, clarity, or for clarity, yeah. Zenless Zone Zero is in 11th, and
okay.
They're floating at around 16,000 or 16 million.
And is that up from last month or down from last month for Z?
So I just averaged the two. So they were at 18 million in February, and then in March they were at 16 million.
Okay. So I'm trying to look at like events. Have any big events or characters come out for these, and kind of does that contribute to where the numbers are? But
yeah, it also could be because February would have been, I believe, Chinese New Year. So there probably would have been, at least in China, a revenue bump or sales bump there from like gifts and money and so forth, because that's usually they're close to their equivalent of Christmas, is my understanding. So they might have seen a bump there, and then it's just, it fell off in March because you came off of Christmas. Not as many people are spending. They don't have the free cash, but that's, I guess, again, they would know those numbers better than I would. I'm not going to speculate too deeply. Anyways, Castorice.
That's a fair point. A little bit of a bunny trail, but not so much of a bunny trail. That was an appropriate bunny trail, I would say.
Yeah. So, I guess, how would you sum up? I know we wandered hither and yon on this one, but I guess what are your final thoughts going into pulling for her tomorrow?
Yeah, so pulling for her, it's something I'd been planning on doing before I knew her kit. So it's something that learning of her kit is not deterring me from doing. I will still be pulling for her. Again, I really like the aesthetic of the character. And then something we didn't mention, but another thing that I think could be right around the corner too that we may have forgotten about is the Fate Stay collaboration.
Yeah.
Because what better time to bring out a Fate Stay character than when summoning things is the storyline of Star Rail and Remembrance Paths. Is that not Fate Stay and them summoning their casters, right?
Yeah.
So I wonder if the free 5-star will be something related to that, and that'll be when the collab starts, or if it'll be just an independent Star Rail original character like Dr. Ratio. But yeah, so I'll still be pulling for Castorice, regardless. Like, so I'll be interested to build her out, and because again, I think the dragon looks awesome. The character looks really cool. There are things on the horizon that I want for my account too, but we don't know much about those, and I think those are so far down. With the anniversary coming up, I think there'll be a boost to the pull economy on the old free-to-play account. So that's where I stand on it. Steve, what about you? Your thoughts? Again, I think we all agree the power itself is okay. Like, it's not game altering, but we're all just more concerned about the precedent, I think is what it boils down to.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna still have to wrestle with it a little bit more. The other half of it is based off of current rumor mill. It's sounding like if I get Castorice, I'm going to need to do a pull in the next patch in order to get her healer support character, which it sounds like is coming out for her. So that sort of semi back to back has me a little bit wondering if I'm going to have gas in the tank. But I don't know. If I'm being super honest with myself, I think I'm probably going to break down and end up pulling for her. It's really going to be more of a question: do I go for her light cone or anything else? Like, do I get a copy of her and stop, or do I try and go for the light cone and come what may? But we will see. I'll again, we've talked this one to death. I don't think that the passive itself is.
Was that a Castorice pun? Talking something death about death. Anyway, yeah, we do have a lot of other things to get through. We have 2 character reviews. We got a bunch of events and then news in other gacha games as well. So first, I'm going to jump into our newly released characters. So we'll do a character review or 2 next. So looking at new characters, we'll start in the Genshin universe. So we just recently had Verissa get released in Genshin, our most recent Natlan character. And Verissa is a 5-star character that's Electro and is a Catalyst user, and with a specialty in plunging DPS. And if you've done her trial, and if you haven't done her trial, she does butt slams. It is what it is. I wasn't ready for it. It cracked me up. Absolutely hilarious. But this is going to be the new character in Genshin. So let's break her down a little bit. Again, for these character breakdowns, we're not going to necessarily go in depth into the kit and what they do there. We're just going to talk about builds and a couple of sample team compositions for you to consider. So that way you can weigh, how much grinding are you going to have to do to farm her up? Also, how much grinding are you going to have to do to build a team around her, or maybe do you already have those characters built? So diving into Verissa, so an Electro Plunge DPS. So again, signature weapon, of course, available on the weapon banner if you have a lot saved up and you're that type of player that pulls on those. If not, other options for you are going to include things like the Lost Prayer to the Sacred Winds, Skyward Atlas, the Witsith, Flowing Purity, those last 2 being more of the 4-cost options. If you haven't gotten, say, Lost Prayer, the Sacred Winds on a standard banner pull. For her artifact set, we're looking at Long Night's Oath. So for Long Night's Oath, if you guys don't remember, this is the 2-piece set. It's going to increase plunging attack damage by 25%. And then the 4-piece effect will, reads as after equipping the character's plunging attack, charge, attack, elemental skill, when it hits an opponent, they gain 1 to 2 stacks of Radiance Everlasting. Plunging attacks, charge attacks, or elemental skills each trigger this effect once every 1 second. Radiance Everlasting plunging attacks deal 15% increased damage for 6 seconds, max 5 stacks. Each stack's duration is counted independently. So yeah, I just wanted to read that verbatim as it is on the set, because trying to explain that, I so much word salad. Anyway, so the Long Night's Oath set, again, is going to be the best artifact set with that focus on the plunging damage. For the stats, we're going to be looking at her SAM. It's going to be attack percentage on that main stat. Goblet, you're going to look at electro damage, and Circlet, crit rate, crit damage. So pretty stereotypical when it comes to the DPS builds. Substats, of course, along those same lines: crit damage, crit rate, attack percentage, energy recharge, elemental mastery. For an example team, you're going to be looking at something like her Cloud Retainer, Farina, and Ian-san. I don't think I'm pronouncing that right, but she's the new 4-cost unit. Is the Electro Polearm user that got released and is one of the 4 costs on the active banners, if I'm not mistaken. But that'd be like a hyper carry team if Verissa is going to be your hyper carry. Then you also have an overload team, which would include Malvika, it would include Chevreuse, and then again, Ian-san with Verissa. So those are going to be kind of some sample teams, but those are going to be the plunging DPS build. That's essentially how you're going to be looking at it. If while you're farming the Long Night's Oath, if you don't have that set already, since it is super specific to like, this is maybe the third plunging damage character, Obsidian Codex would probably be the next best option for, which you probably have farmed some of that if you've pulled for other Natland characters. So Long Night's Oath would be the best option, and then Obsidian Codex if you have an overabundance of those from previous Natland farming or while you farm the Long Night's Oath set. So that's going to be Varessa and Genshin. Moving to Zenless Zone Zero, actively on the banner right now, we do have the new character Trigger, who is the new S-rank character. She is of the Electric attribute, and she is in the Stunning specialty, or the Stun specialty, rather. So for her build, again, you have your specialized item for her, the special weapon there. If you're not pulling on the weapon banner, there are a few other 5 costs if you have them on the account, but some of these, again, are going to be from premium weapon banner pulls. So if you're not a weapon banner, this may not be as applicable, but I'm just listing them so that you have that information, right? So behind her signature, you'll have Blazing Laurel, Ice Jade Teapot, and the Restrained. For free-to-play options, then we're looking at some 4-star, or as they are in Zenless Zone Zero, AW engines, which would be Precious Fossilized Core or Steam Oven would be kind of the next 2 options. If you don't have any of those 4 costs, the next best option would be a 3-cost, the Vortex Arrow W engine. As far as her build, the disk drive sets, or more commonly artifact sets, but disk drives in Zenless Zone Zero, you're going to be looking at Shockstar Disco, the 4-piece there, and then you can combine it with the Woodpecker Electro 2-piece set, since there are 6 slots in Zenless Zone Zero for equipment. For the main stats, disk drives, for those unfamiliar, stats for disk 1, 2, and 3 slots are always the same, similar to, some of our slots in Genshin for, gloves. It's always going to be a certain stat, right? But for Zenless Zone Zero, discs 4, 5, and 6 are going to be where we see that variance, similar to, circlets and sands and such. So for disc 4, crit rate percentage, disc 5, electro damage, or you can settle for attack percentage on disc 5. And then disc 6 would be impact. Substats, we're going to again focus crit rate, crit damage, attack percentage, and then penetration or flat attack. So, oh man, somebody who's a DPS unit, kind of standard DPS builds, meaning doing the same thing across Hoyoverse games. What?
Yeah.
But that's going to be Trigger in a nutshell as far as her build. For teams and synergies, obviously there's some synergy with Anby Soldier Zero, who was just on the last banner cycle. And then for supports, you have like Astra Yao, Caesar, and Nicole Lucy. Trigger also works as the stunner in a Yanagi team, or a Miyabi team, or even an Evelyn team as well. So you can go either way with those. With, again, Astra Yao, Nicole, Lucy kind of going to be your main supporter types, with a couple other exceptions to flex in there. Now, for me, since I have kind of run dry on my resources, having pulled for Astra Yao, Evelyn, and Bernice, essentially going back to back to back banners, I am not pulling for Trigger, or rather cannot pull for Trigger. But Steve, I believe you did in fact pull for Trigger. So
Yes.
how did that go, and what does she play like?
So it would. I got lucky. I won the 50-50, which is the only reason why I have her. I pulled for her because I did pull for Silver Soldier Anby, and the two of them work very, very well together. Anby wants a stunner because she's an attack character, and she actually gets bonuses for having stunners and support characters teamed with her. So, having Trigger there, the two of them work very well together and make a nice electric team core. She's actually fairly off-field once you get her enough energy to use her ability. The rotation's fairly straightforward, and she doesn't need a lot of on-field time, which is, again, nice because Anby wants a lot of on-field time. So it makes her very nice for a stunner. You don't have to have her sitting on field doing things. She can, once she's up and running, she's basically able to just stay in the background and I don't have to worry too much about her. Just make sure I keep my rotation up with her. Um, she's a fun character. A fun little note for those of you who are planning on pulling for her. Her eye mask that she has. There's two little lights, LEDs on it, and the light colors will change depending on her emotions or mood. So I think it's pink when she blushes. It'll turn red when she's angry, etc., etc. So since you can't ever see her eyes, they give you that little visual clue in order to tell what her emotion is. Yeah. So
it's the little thing.
Yeah, it's those. But no, I'm enjoying her. I haven't fully. Unfortunately, the problem I have with ZZZ is that I'm still on that grind of getting characters up to their full potential and get back into like getting to the relic stage of grinding. I'm still at the hey, I need to get all of these materials, and I keep on running out of money. I think it's Zinni in that game. I keep on running out of Zinni to try and upgrade characters. And I'm just never quite able to get over that hump of having like, okay, I've got these 2 or 3 full teams, and I'm done, and I'm in that smooth grinding mode. I haven't quite built myself up to where I'm at in say Genshin or Honkai Star Rail, where it's log in, do whatever it is, and, cash it and go. But regardless, was there anything else that you wanted to cover with released characters, or are we good to move on to events?
No, I that's all I got. I know we have a bunch of events, so it's going to toss to you to run through those. And
okay. Yeah, sounds good. So we'll start with Genshin Impact. Their current event is the Tournament of Glory in Bloom event. It's a multi-act sort of story event. Apparently, you need to defend your flag and capture enemy flags. Is sort of the modes of the event. There are defensive battles and offensive battles that you can play through. And there is also a sort of board game called Sarin Treasure Seeker that you can play, where you go around and you collect special treasures on a board and avoid hazards in order to complete it. So that's the meat and potatoes of that event. We now have quite a few ZZZ events because we're didn't get a chance to cover them when the new patch came out, and they tend to run for a bit. So there are the 2 story events, which are the Silver Soldier Song and the 0 Point Calibration. Silver Soldier Song is the Silver Soldier Ambi event, which is going to be focused on her as a character. And then the Silver Point Calibration is basically triggers a story event that you can play through and then sort of get to know her. There's Virtual World Battle Storm, which is a combat event that you can play through. It's built around the young maid girl, if I remember correctly, and her going to the HIA center in order to play virtual games. There's the classic Ina Into Your Lap, which is the login event where you get tokens or tickets to pull for your Bang Boos, your little support guys. So you can get 10 of those if you log in for a week. And finally is March On Tidy Titan, which is, I think, my favorite event so far in this patch, which is a semi-vampire survivor type mode where they basically take the combat and instead of being over the shoulder like it normally is, they actually move it into a more of a Diablo-esque top-down view. And you primarily fight with a special Bang Boo that when you take certain actions, it will unleash different attacks and abilities, and you can build it up in a roguelike style. I found that to be a rather fun event and was quite enjoyable, but mileage will vary depending on each individual.
Your taste for Devil Survivor.
Well, yeah, and to be fair, it is interesting to see the combat from a more aerial point of view instead of over the shoulder, because there's a lot of movement and so forth that I didn't notice, or like area of effect abilities. A number of them will actually go behind your character. So being able to see them from above and see just how large some of these area of effects are, it was interesting. I'll say that.
Perfect countering slightly more difficult in my opinion, but
Yeah.
overall, yeah, very, very enjoyable as far as the event goes. And I also appreciate that easy, I think, takes the Star Rail approach in terms of a lot of the events that we missed during our time away from the game are still there. Just limited events or limited rewards are no longer available, but still able to do a few of them, which also helped in my restocking the coffins of resources. Um, any other events, or is it time for us to wrap up with some other gotcha news?
I think we're good to move on to other gotcha news.
All right, other gotcha news. Well, obviously a lot happened while we were away. So a couple things just kind of more recently that I want to touch on. So first thing I wanted to mention was another Eden. So I bring this up because this gotcha game has been around for a while. It's I think I've played it and left it and restarted and played it on multiple occasions. It's a very traditional kind of almost JRPG experience, but another Eden's having a revival event that's running for a little bit. But basically, they're going to be giving you 5-star units as you complete various chapters in the main story. So it's encouraging new players to try it out. It's encouraging old players to come back to it. And while I did enjoy the game itself, I will say the caveat to this is it has probably one of the most unfriendly gotchas I think I've experienced. Either that or I had the worst luck, I guess, to give it maybe a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. But another Eden, if you are interested in trying out maybe more traditional JRPG style gotcha, now would be a decent time to start and try it out. I believe they actually have a Steam client as well, so that's kind of a bonus if you're looking to do that. Tribe 9, another game that recently came out and I gave a go upon release. They just launched their version 1.1 trailer for the Neo Chiyoda City chapter. So if you are playing Tribe 9, know that new content is right around the corner. Diving into a couple gotcha games that we are playing, we did mention Girls Frontline 2, so Kluge being released, and just to kind of dive a little bit deeper into her character. So this character, as you guys know, with Girls Frontline 2, the Chinese server is about a year ahead of the global server. And so we kind of have a little bit of a roadmap. And for Kluge, she is still very relevant in the meta in the Chinese server. And what is interesting about her is she is an absolute AoE monster. She trivializes a lot of the normal content in like story mode. And then in terms of like for bossing purposes, she's not as strong because bossing is more of a single target gimmick, right? And she is all about the AoE. And this is where people talked about her versatility after. So her thresholds in terms of what you want to get to with her, if you are looking to do her in bossing content, is going to be the first kind of mini step up is the V3, which is that first point, which makes her ability do better with single targets. But in all reality, your V6 is like the huge. If you can get her to V6, it's like a huge boost to her single target and makes her one of the top characters in bossing content. My counterproductive or my counterpoint to this is if you get any 5-star character 6 dupes, like if you were to get any character in Genshin to C6, it's probably going to be pretty good if if they're originally 5-star characters.
Yeah, if you're investing that deep.
Yeah, if you're investing that deep, any character is going to be good, but she is really good if you get her to V6. But so if you budgeted and saved up for her like I did, like I said, I was able to get pretty lucky and win every 50-50, and so I got her to V3 and stopped. For her weapon, her signature weapon, while not required, you can do it, but again, since you're pulling so much 4 copies of her to get her to V3 or potentially V6, maybe you don't have enough left over for the weapon. Other weapons, she can use Tololo's weapon, Planeta. That's her second best option. That's a good alternative that you may actually already have on your account. Plus, you can purchase Planeta from the exchange in the shop once you get, the equivalent of shards just for doing polls on banners. I think it's 600 or 900 shards. I can't remember which, but that'll be a good alternative to her signature weapon. Or if you don't have Planeta, the 4-star, or I guess the SSRs and SR options, right, would be Heckler and Koch 416. So That's Clue K, the character. As far as this patch in Girls Frontline, big event. So they're basically over the course of login events giving away 40 pulls. I think it's split 20 and 20 versus limited pulls versus standard banner pulls, but either way, that's still 40 pulls, which is pretty awesome. They're also giving away a Kluke costume for free, by the way. So you get a free skin for the banner character Kluke, just for doing essentially your dailies. Now, obviously, there's some extra things in there, but yeah, as long as you do log in and do dailies for maybe 5-6 days, you'll get a free skin, which actually looks pretty good. It's a pretty cool skin. So that's going on with the event for her, and that is Girls Frontline 2. Nikkei, just to touch in the Nikkei real quick, while not a major event going on because we did just have the second iteration of the Evangelion collaboration, and we have the half anniversary and summer events coming up. So we are kind of maybe in a little bit of a lull for Nikkei, but we did have a new character, Bredy, get released, who is a Burst 3 attacker class using a sniper rifle and is of the water element. And what a shocker, it's another Tetra unit. For those of you that have heard me in the past about Nikkei, they must love Tetra units because that is the faction that is the most abundant. But for Bredy, not meta defining, she's going to be very niche. Probably better at bossing and supporting characters in that regards. She is awful in PvP, but again, it's just going to be very niche, kind of basically for bosses that have a weakness to water. That's essentially going to be what you're going to. But if she's a waifu over meta, by all means, go for it and pull. My only warning, again, would just be half anniversary and summer events are right around the corner, which Nikkei tends to do pretty big. So that's going to be for games that we play. One quick announcement as far as a new gacha game that's launching here, I guess later this week, technically April 10th, globally, and launching will be Black Beacon. This is an action RPG. I think I remember seeing it a few months ago in the very early stages. It kind of fell off my radar, but obviously with the launch later on here this week, it's popped back on. But I haven't found anybody saying there's a PC client. I don't think there is a PC client at launch. That doesn't mean there won't be one in the future. But as of launch, no PC client, which I think tends to hurt some of these action RPGs when they aren't available and their only option is to do a phone or an emulator. So, but that's going to do it for us this week. We want to thank you guys joining us. Welcome back. Let us know, your thoughts on the introduction to global ults in Honkai Star Rail. Maybe you guys have a completely different take than we do. Maybe you guys share in our hesitancy to the introduction of these and the precedent that it sets. But either way, let us know down below. Or maybe let us know what you've been playing. What pulls in your gacha have you been doing? And we can talk about those. If you enjoyed the episode and you'd like to show your support for the show, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to the channel. You can always email us at brohoyopod@gmail.com with questions or suggestions for the show. And then, of course, we have the link to our Discord in the description, so you can join us over there for various news, gaming nights, and other content notifications. And then you can join us next week when we diagnose if we have Genshin burnout, and if so, how do we overcome it? But until then, keep gaming.
We made a choice, go fight against your fate.